Welcome to Deciphering Android Design Principles with Now in Android. In this series, we'll use Now in Android to learn in detail about Android development best practices. In this video, we'll learn about functional testing. Functional testing is a fundamental test to check if your app is working as intended. In this video, we'll focus specifically on instrumentation tests within functional testing. Instrumentation tests are tests that run on a physical device or an emulated Android device. In Now in Android, screen UI tests and navigation tests are mainly conducted. Now, let's take a closer look at each test. Here's the translation of the Japanese text to English. As the name suggests, UI testing is testing the screen. UI tests are implemented in the screens of each feature module and in the core UI module. These tests are performed on stateless composable functions. Specifically, we test whether the display is correct for each UI state. Now, let's take a closer look at the details of the tests. Okay, here's the English translation of the Japanese text. First, let's talk about testing stateless composable functions. Here's an example from the For You screen. There are two types of composable functions in the For You screen. The first type is a composable function that receives UI state as an argument. This function only specifies the UI state and doesn't hold any internal state. We call these functions stateless. The second type is a composable function that receives a view model as an argument. This function observes the view model's state and redraws itself according to its changes. We call these functions stateful. In UI tests, we focus on stateless composable functions because changes in UI state caused by the view model are tested in the view model itself. Next, let's look at test examples for each UI state. This is a test example for the loading state. First, in the execution phase, we set the loading state on a stateless screen. Then, in the verification phase, we assert that the loading UI is displayed correctly. In this test, we are identifying the loading UI using the content description. The content description is a property for improving accessibility, but it is also being used in testing. Here's the translation of the Japanese text. Next, let's talk about navigation testing. In navigation testing, we test the most common screen transition paths. This test helps prevent crashes during initialization. Also, we use a fake repository instead of a real repository to improve reproducibility. In navigation testing, we verify that the main screen transitions work correctly and that there are no crashes. In Now in Android, we primarily test the scenarios outlined in the slides. These include the first launch, tapping each tab, displaying and hiding the settings screen dialog, and actions such as back gestures or button taps. Let's look at an actual navigation test example. We'll use the main activity and create a compose test rule. This activity is the entry point of the app. It uses the navigation component to achieve transitions between screens. In the test example, we are checking if the For You screen is selected on the first launch. We use a fake repository to perform fast and highly reproducible navigation tests. A fake is a test double that behaves like the real thing, eliminating network dependencies. We inject this fake using Dagger Hilt. We use the attest install and annotation to replace the repository with the fake.